Like there's ideas like, oh, you just should get over it. It's not something you just
Get over.
get over because every time I move my arm, I feel that pain.
Yes, sir.
But I look at it now, and it made me appreciate life a lot more.
Yes, sir.
I try not to take any moment for granted. That pain to me is, now I look at it as a blessing. It lets me know I'm alive. God took care of me that night.
Amen.
And that's the only, I hate when people say, oh, you were lucky, you're lucky. I wasn't lucky. Luck had nothing to do with it.
You bet.
I said I was blessed.
Yes, sir.
Yep.
That bullet went any other place and where it went, I wouldn't be here talking to you.
Yeah.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to today's 10-8 podcast. We're warming up. We've already had a couple laughs this morning. So, Director Chris Chapman with the Arkansas Division on Law Enforcement Standards and Training, joined today by our Deputy Directors Kelvin Sargent and Jason Lawrence, and our very special guest. Every guest is special. We have to say that.
True. It's true.
But going back as long as we all have, knowing each other. And it's an honor to have you here today. And this is Trooper Kyle Sheldon with the Arkansas State Police, who's going to share with us today. And it's just an honor to have you. And
Thanks,
we really appreciate you being here. Now, I was told before the broadcast, and I'm very proud of this, I have the most hair out of all four of us.
That is true, sir.
I just want to admit to that. Very seldom is that the case.
True.
But thank you. I appreciate you contributing to the cause this morning.
absolutely. I said this morning.
And we appreciate that. Thank you,
So
Kyle.
one of the first things we do, we ask everybody to hit that like and subscribe button. I think we have surpassed 20 followers
What?
at this point. I
No.
know, unbelievable. Don't know how we did it.
It's a lot of pressure. Man, that's a pressure.
Yeah. Shooting for 30 now.
Yes.
So please hit that like and subscribe button. We hope you enjoy today's episode. So what we're going to talk about today is, Kyle, just your life, how you got to be to this point, some things that you've experienced over the course of your career. I know we've shared some time together. You and Jason shared a lot of time together. But we want our listeners to know, man, when it comes to resiliency, we use that word a lot and we throw that word out there. But man, you're a pretty resilient fella.
Yeah, he is.
You've been through some things. You've seen some things. I don't know how much of this you know, but our childhood's very similar.
Right.
We come from a broken background, and maybe that helped steer us to where we are today. But why don't we start there? Just kind of telling us how you got into law enforcement. I took some notes this morning, and I think you sitting around with your grandmother watching cop shows growing up.
Absolutely.
She kind of pushed you a little bit and challenged you, but you weren't a cartoon watcher, right?
No, my nanny tells me, and I don't really, back then I don't really remember, but she said instead of cartoons that I would turn on Cops, that I'd, sing the song to it, and that's what I wanted to watch even as a little kid. And I don't know if that was so much of what steered me in that direction. Maybe I had an underlying passion for it, I'm pretty strong in my beliefs, and I feel like no matter what I did in life, like God always pushed me back towards this career, even if I had other ambitions. I mean, y'all know of my hiatus from law enforcement and trying to get down the insurance road, and it's like everywhere I turned, everything I seen, is me and my wife discussed it. Like God always pushed me back here, back where I needed to be, and it was a very eye-opening, experience for me. And like as a young kid, my parents were my parents. There was a lot of hardships growing up. There was some abuse and from a stepdad, and it was like I never looked at cops as bad guys when they got there. Like they were the saviors to me. They were when I heard those sirens coming, the lights coming when I was a kid, like I felt safe. And I think I think that's what drove me more to wanting to do this job than anything is I wanted to be that safe for a kid, for an adult, for anybody. And being able to, I'm very passionate about talking to kids and kind of explaining kids, especially kids from broken homes, and telling them, you choose your own path. Just because where you come from, you don't have to be a product of your raising.
Yeah, your environment,
Instead, you choose, like I think about it every day. I wake up, you have two paths to choose, whether you work hard, do the right thing, or be lazy, do the wrong thing. And that's kind of how I live my life. Like I get up and choose that path to succeed. And that's what I try to preach to kids. I've spent times, I found a missing juvenile from Texas one time, and, you know, she said, and she told me, well, both my parents are in prison. Both my parents have been locked up. I live with my grandma, and she's hard on me. And I was like, well, it's because your grandma loves you and she cares. And I sat and talked to that little girl for like 2.5 hours.
Wow.
Yeah.
And, you know, she went back and she told me, she's like, I'm going to go back to school and listen to my grandma. And she actually reached out to me on Facebook at one point, and she had.
That's awesome.
You know, so, and doing well. And so it's just little things. It's the time you take in this job that, and some people are impossible. We know that.
Yep.
You know, some people you can't, but a lot of people, you know, in the back of that car, their minds change a little bit. They'll listen to you.
Yeah.
And I try to take that time to talk to them. And I had just one other story real quick is it was probably 2-3 years ago. I had this guy call me, and I had no idea who he was. And he said, sir, he said, I just want to reach out to you. He goes, you saved my son's life. And I was like, okay, like, I don't know who he's talking to. He tells me his name, and I really don't remember. He said he told me a story about when you arrested him. Said it was out on 70 East, and he was walking down the road. I think we got a call on him, and I get out with him. He acts like he's going to take off running. When I got out, he kind of goes back, but he stops. I get him. He has a bunch of warrants, and I had to take him into custody. He told me, he's like, well, I was going to run from you, but when you got out, I didn't think I could outrun you. And I was like,
there you go.
So
that bearing.
But me and that guy talked all the way to the jail, and we talked in the jail, and that's whose dad it was. And when he told me that story, I remembered exactly who it was. And he said since that day, he said his son's been clean and sober ever since.
Awesome.
That he's actually like working to get maybe like a psychology or sociology degree, where he works at a mission right now helping other people try to recover.
As a peer recovery
So it's,
specialist.
I mean, to me, it's like the little awards. I'm by far anybody that wants recognition for anything I do. Like, I feel like I just go out there and do my job to the best of my ability, and I have faults. You know, I don't do everything perfect by any means, but I think it all stems just, you know, a push forward that I knew what I didn't want to be, and not always knowing how to get there. But like my grandma and grandpa Sheldon taught me from a young age, you know, along with my nanny and my grandpa's on the other side, that, you know, just get up every day and work hard, push forward, and don't let everybody tell you can't do anything.
Yeah.
And I think,
you know, that we talk about servant leadership a lot, and every time we have the opportunity to teach a leadership class or be around individuals, we talk about, you know, how that's our true passion, is just to serve others. And that's what I'm hearing from you, you know, based on your circumstances, based on what you saw, what we saw really impacted us as young men. And I think it impacted us for the better. It did. We saw a lot of tragic things growing up, but at some point there was somebody that poured into us and gave us the opportunity to become the people we are today. I don't even know that you remember making this statement, but it means a lot to me, and I think this really should speak well to our listeners and our other law enforcement members out there. You made the statement that, you know, to the world, I may be only one person, but to me, I may be the whole world to an individual I'm dealing with. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you remember saying that, but that really stuck with me, you know, because you never know the impact that you're going to have, just like the individual out there on 70 East. Mm-hmm. You know, you could have just taken him to jail, not had a conversation with him, served the warrants, went about your business. But you took the time. We talk about empathy, understanding. And so you empathize with that individual.
And then found a path.
To help him maybe change his life. Mm-hmm. People don't realize that we have that opportunity every day.
And we have it more than we realize. I think a lot of people realize.
Yeah.
And that, you know, we talked about it in church not too long ago, just the amount of people you come in contact with. Because, I mean, let's be real, when we come in contact with people, they're not having their best day.
Correct.
Usually not.
You know, I mean, whether it's a vehicle crash, whether it's a domestic, numerous other things that we respond to, it's never anybody's like, man, I'm having the best day of my life.
Yeah, thanks for showing up.
It's, you know, besides community events or something, anything else we do, it's somebody's worst day.
Yep.
And I think we have to realize that, and I think some of us don't. Yeah. Like, people are going to yell, people are going to be, you know, belligerent at times, and it's just finding a way to calm them down. And like I said before, like some people,
it's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen. But a lot of them, if you'll show them the respect, a lot of times you'll get it back.
Yeah.
And it may take a second, but you got to have patience.
That's right.
I think that's the coolest part about the job is you have that ability every single moment of the day to impact somebody that you're leading. Because we talk a lot that as law enforcement, you're leaders day one. As soon as you put the badge on, you're leaders at work, you're leaders at home, because we lead at home as well. But man, you have that opportunity for those in the community, which you've already described, the opportunity to lead and make that an impact of those you work with. So within, for example, your Troop K, or the surrounding counties or the cities, you have that impact every day. And then the most important one is, man, when you get home, man, you get to lead at home, and man, and make that impact with that wife, that husband, those kids, those who love you outside the office, man.
And it's, and it's prioritized. When you get in this job, it's easy. I feel like that when you first get in this job, you get wrapped up.
Of course.
And all you want to do is put that uniform on and go to work.
Yeah.
And especially for young officers, is you can't let that become your whole life. Like, you can't make that your main focus. You got to focus on your family. You got to focus on God. You got to put other things first.
Yes, sir.
Where the job shouldn't be number one. Yeah, the job's important, but that's why, law enforcement divorce rate and stuff are so high.
Yes,
because
sir.
we get wrapped up in this job, and that's all you care about. You're taking overtime. You're doing it, and sometimes we're taking overtime because we have to.
Of course.
But other things, you sign up for extra stuff that, when you're young, you always want to be, you always want to be 10-8.
Yes, sir.
And, and there's positive, negatives to everything, but, we go back to talking to kids, and I see it now as an adult, and I was talking to one of the coaches about this the other day, is you see the kids that you realize are struggling at home in these schools, and as an adult, I look back and realize that at that time in my life, like, I was that kid, and I didn't realize everybody's seen it. And, and being in the presence, and, you're known in your community. Like, we all work in our communities. People know who we are. And it's taking the time to talk to these kids that come from troubled homes.
Sure.
And let them see that cops aren't all bad.
Yeah, man.
And, we all come from different backgrounds. So I'll ask them, how do you think I grew up? None of them ever give the right, never guess. But it's that benefactor of not using your past as a crutch, but as a learning tool to better yourself.
Yeah, it's like a ladder. I just happen to be on the bottom rung, and I worked myself up through it, and it's hard, but, sharing that story with those kids is really impactful too. Letting them know that they're not isolated and alone, that other people have overcome those issues. To me, and I've spent a lot of time with kids too. Just, it's my passion, whether it was coaching or just being with the kids, my son's friends. And when I share, where I came from, they're like, "Oh no, really? How'd you overcome that?" I was the kid wearing the Walmart tennis shoes and the Rustler jeans, and if
Rustler
Champion.
jeans.
Champion and Rustler jeans,
Yeah, man.
while my buddies were, wearing Nikes and Levi's and all that. And
this is one thing that I've been thinking a lot about lately is, and like, I'll ask you, at what point did you realize that you didn't live in a normal home, that it was different than your friends?
I think I remember very vividly. It's probably my 10th birthday. My mom decided she wanted to throw me a birthday party. Never had a birthday party where friends are invited over, and I thought it was really cool, that was going to happen. But then, like, 3 people showed up, right? 3 people showed up, and we lived in literally a dump. I mean, just a, cockroach infested junkyard. I mean, that's the only way I know how to describe it. It was my norm. But then when my friends saw that and the way they reacted, I think that was one of the moments where I thought, oh my,
wow,
how different is this? Never had another birthday party, by the way. No. But, that eventually led me to, my grandparents and my dad, getting away from my stepmom or my mom and stepdad in that environment. But to me, it was just the everyday norm. Like, I talk about the search warrant that was ran, when I was very young, and they arrested my mom and stepdad and uncle. That didn't bother me a bit. I'd already seen so much that, them putting handcuffs on them and running through the house, that didn't bother me because it was the norm. But I think, about whenever that birthday party was and somebody actually showed up and then saw how we lived and just their reaction to that it was devastating to me as a kid.
And that's like, I don't know. Nobody really came to my house when I was young.
Yeah, nobody came to ours either.
It was just like, and I guess like why I've been thinking about it is like the aspect of talking to these kids. And I just wish I remember at what point did I realize that I wanted to be different. And I mean, don't get me wrong. I have good sides of my family. I have family members that are super successful,
absolutely.
but we have, there's a group that's not. And the road I was like, we take like class on statistics and, talking about the environment kids grow up in statistically. If you grow up in, a home of that nature, that's what you become. But there's a lot of us that have made it out, and there's a lot more in law enforcement than we realize. Like, as you get to talking to people, how many people kind of have that same childhood, but then you see the ones that don't, and it's like, and I just can't remember, and it bothers me. At what point did I turn and realize, hey, I don't want to be like that? Yeah. Like, I want to be successful. I want to go down the right path. And I think that's kind of been a struggle, like personally for me, because how do you be that voice to kids if I don't remember who was that voice to me?
Well, I remember who the voice was to me. Wow. So I remember, like I said, the moment I really realized I was different. But the voice to me was my grandmother on my dad's side. She picked me. She would pick me up every weekend. She would wash my clothes for me. She would do the best she could for me. She would buy me the things that she could. But she's the one that started taking me to church. She's the one that poured into me every opportunity from the earliest moment I can remember that you can choose to be different. I have to take you back because that she has custody of you, but you can be different if you choose to be different.
Yeah, I remember those days of they're out, and you can go back to them.
Yeah.
And maybe that's what I'm missing. I know my grandparents from my nanny, my grandma Sheldon, Papa Nick, Papa Ernie, like all of them were a positive influence for sure. Like they were all successful people, and like my grandma Sheldon, who I lived with a lot when I was young. And of course, they both passed away when I was probably 11, 12. So, but it's like, and then as I got older, and that's why I have such a passion for my kids playing sports and stuff. Like, I feel like my coaches back then were one of the biggest voices.
Oh, yeah.
Because they helped me so much and did so much for me that I didn't realize at the time. And they knew a lot more than I realized, and they still do a lot.
And they saw potential in me that I didn't see in myself.
Right, 100%.
Yeah.
And that was, and I could say a lot from, my high school coaches were a huge impact on what I did. And that's why you see a lot of kids that are in that environment and stuff and don't play sport. They don't have that something to do, I guess, really, because if you don't keep them busy, and the only thing they knew, they have older siblings and cousins that, well, let's go do this, and then all of a sudden they're in trouble. They're headed down that wrong path, where if they were out there playing sports, they were doing something, they were getting more positive influences in their life, that it can change. And I think maybe that's I would say 100% probably that's what saved me in the end is that positive influence from the coaches that I had growing up that kept me on the right path.
Yeah, so Russ Anglin, he was one of my basketball coaches, former major league catcher from Clinton, Arkansas, but ended up at Lake Hamilton. And my family never showed up for sporting events. And so a lot of times, you'd stay late for practice every day. And then I was walking home, but we lived about 2 miles from the school, so it wasn't anything. I'd just walk home. A lot of days, he'd give me a ride in the little driveway. Or I would stay late because I didn't want to go home, shooting jumpers or working on my free throws. Guess who stayed with me?
Yep.
Coach Anglin. And to this day, that man is a hero to me. Just amazing guy. And he doesn't understand the impact he had on my life.
And I still talk, and of course, some of those coaches now are my kids' coach.
Yeah.
So, and then, and also, when I was about 14, the family that ended up adopting me, was huge. And still to this day, that's who, my kids know. and that's who I want them to know. I mean, they know my other parent, and I mean, they know of them, but they don't really know them.
Right.
And that's, it is what it is. But the, Tracy and Johnny, when they took me in as a kid, and to this day, which they're not together no more, Tracy and Alan and Johnny and Teresa, but Tracy and Alan still do so much for us and for my kids, and they treat them like they're their own.
How
family.
old were you when they took you in?
Do what?
How old were you when they took you in?
I was about 14.
14.
I was, yeah. And what the whole situation was is I would become friends with their kids, and they invited me to the house, and I kind of was just there a lot. Well, they started kind of asking questions like, Kyle's great, we don't mind him being here, but do his parents not care? And they're like, well, he don't really have any parents.
Yeah.
And then they took it upon themselves to find out,
Start looking into
it, and which I think my dad was maybe locked up in Michigan or in a mission in Michigan at the time, and he, and then of course they ended up getting parental rights over me, and that was probably a huge saving factor in my life because they were a huge positive influence.
Gave you a stable environment.
Exactly, and to this day, they're a positive influence on my kids, and that means everything to me.
Well, you don't have to be blood to be family.
No, man,
No.
you don't. And I will tell you, the two of you inspire me. Man, you could have let your life jade you. Both of you could. You could have both, man, take the wrong turn on the trail, but you didn't. And so that didn't jade you and harden you, that you were still able to have compassion now in your careers for those that you love. Man, you two really had hard lives and able to just now come and where you are today, man, it's inspirational.
Yeah, I agree with, echo what Jason is saying. I was fortunate to be raised in a family with a mother and father, but to see the odds that you all faced.
Well, the truth be known, I consider myself fortunate, though. I mean, even though I saw what I saw and endured some of the things I endured, I feel very fortunate that I had grandparents that loved me, that I had a dad that, even though he was extremely busy, he loved me in his way and was involved when he could be. I just feel fortunate that I had them, because if I hadn't had that, I mean, I don't know that I could have, on my own, changed the outcome from where I came from, And we talk about, my little brother. That's one of my biggest regrets is I couldn't help him the way I tried to help myself. And, he's a product of that environment.
Yes, sir.
He let it suck him in, and he still struggles with those problems today. So I feel fortunate. I don't take pity on myself, and I'm sure you don't either.
Yeah.
We feel fortunate to be able that God's allowed us to be here and doing what we're doing.
Well, and God has a plan for all of us.
Yep.
And if this is the path He chose for us, we would have got here one way or another. It may just not have been the easiest road. And like you talked about your brother, like I have a little sister, and the stuff she tells me that I didn't know about stuff, which we had different dads, but her parents, my mom and her dad were doing and gave to her and whatever else. And I wasn't around her a lot when we were young, but as she's, but I always try to make a point to talk to her.
Yeah.
And, we still to this day have a good relationship. Like when she calls me when there's problems, I try to call her. We don't talk enough, and I feel bad about that. We're both busy, both have kids and stuff now. I mean, we're all in our 30s, so we're getting
He's only
busy.
in his 30s.
Yeah.
That's
Getting near the end of 30.
Yeah, well, we're getting near the end of 50.
Our listeners know, Chris, you're, small town.
Yeah.
Small town. You're from small town, and, kind of for our listeners, like, where'd you grow, like, where are you from?
That's a good question.
That's why I asked it.
Yeah. I want to add, my sister is doing great. I am super proud
I
of her.
apologize. I didn't mean to
But
interrupt you.
That, I grew up in Northwest Arkansas when I was young, lived in Rogers. Bella Vista is where my grandparents lived. My nanny is from Kansas City. I started school in Kansas City.
Yeah.
We bounced between Kansas City and like Bentonville Rogers.
Yeah.
Actually, I lived in a house in Avoca. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of that, but
Kind of like Hemp Wallace.
Yeah,
Yeah.
pretty much.
pretty much it's by Garfield, if that helps.
Yes,
Not at all.
it does for me. I know where Garfield is.
Right by Beaver Lake.
Yep.
There you go. That helps
Yeah.
me. I know where that's at.
So we lived out in the middle of nowhere, and that's where like all I did was play in the woods. You know, I had a good German Shepherd, and a lot of times it was better to get a tent with my dog and sleep in the woods than it was in the house. You know, when I was young, and I was a little kid, like the woods. Still to this day, hunting still my escape because
Yes,
that
sir.
was my safe place as a kid.
Yes, sir.
So, and then lived in Kansas City. Well, my grandparents ended up moving to Florida. So I lived in Florida with them for a little while, and my aunt and Uncle Kim, I lived with them. Then I ended up in Michigan. My dad lived in Michigan for a little bit, and would come back to Arkansas, went back to Michigan, then finally ended up back in Arkansas. And I ended up graduating from Glen Rose.
Yes, sir.
And so that was a big shout out to the Glen Rose coaches.
There you
over
go. There you go.
Yeah.
And that, so it was, I moved a lot as a kid.
Yeah.
And, you know, it was a lot of moving, different schools, you know, learning to make friends in different environments and different, you know, social classes, per se. And it's just, they were all pretty much small. I mean, minus Kansas City's not a small town,
Sure.
but, you know, I lived in St. John's up in Michigan, and then would move back to, and then I ended up with my mom in like 7th grade, I think. And she had married some guy that was driving out of a trucking company out of this area, out of like the Benton area.
Yeah.
And that was really my first 7th and part of 8th grade was my first year at Glen Rose. Well, then I ended up my dad took me back to Michigan in 9th and 10th because he had custody of me.
Sure.
Or not 9th and the first semester of 10th. And then I ended up my second semester of 10th back at Glen Rose.
Wow.
And that's when, because I'd come back with my mom, and she was driving a big truck too, and she was supposed to go to South Carolina and get her Jeep and come back, and
Never came back.
never come back.
Do you think
And-
that helped you build resiliency even at a young age, having to deal with all that and to transition like that on such a frequent basis?
I mean, I think so. I think it made me very versed in like how I deal with people because
Yeah.
I've seen so many different cultures and environments,
Yeah.
and you learn you acclimate quicker, like, and it does build resilience. And I think, you know, at some point I feel like I became so numb to stuff that
Yeah.
I didn't let a lot bother me.
Yeah.
And
Bet.
like I had my focus, like I was a big wrestler. I wrestled my whole life, which my grandpa Sheldon was a high school football coach and then ended up becoming a college professor. So he always pushed me towards sports, and, you know, sports were my escape. And, you know, wrestling's one of those that back then you could do year round until I come back to Arkansas. Well, Arkansas didn't have wrestling back then.
Nope.
So Northwest Arkansas did, but not Central Arkansas. So that's when, you know, you get more into track and football, and which I always played football too, but that became your main focus, you know, down here because there wasn't a lot else to do. You know, now of course a lot of that's evolved, and I think keeping myself busy was my biggest resilience. Like, if I worked out, I kept my mind on that, I always had something to focus on. And I think without that focus is where a lot of kids go astray.
Yep.
Like if you're sitting at home bored, you know, because back then we didn't have phones and tablets and the internet, you know, so you went outside and
Didn't come back till dark.
Right.
If you came back, yeah.
right.
Yeah.
No, I can't tell you how many days I did exactly what you did. If I wasn't in school, I got up. We were surrounded by these big cattle farm or these big farms and just all the places in the world you could go get lost and play. And seriously, not come home.
Yeah.
I mean, you'd be out there all day. One, it was an escape for me, and I didn't want to be there, but I had a place just to go get lost, man.
Absolutely.
So, all right, so let's fast forward a little bit. You graduate, you go down to Henderson for a little while. You know you want to chase this law enforcement career, but you didn't start with Arkansas State Police. Where'd you start?
Well, I mean, I started with ADC.
Yeah.
And I was there for 5 years. I left there as a field sergeant. I was field sergeant for 3 years, rode a horse, you know, over the work crews. When I left there, I went to Malvern PD. Spent 2.5, almost 3 years there, and that's when I applied for the state police.
Yep.
And was back. I started at Malvern in 2012, and I started with state police in 15.
Yeah. So, all right. So, did you always want to be a trooper, or was it just a progression as you
It was
one step at a time?
I think
and
once
that's where you wanted to be.
I think once I became a city cop,
Yeah.
that became my ultimate goal. Like just seeing them, the professionalism, the amount of respect they carry, and I mean, it was just where like you look at them like their uniforms are sharp, put together. Like you had a lot of
Yeah.
respect.
Yeah, bearing.
Yeah, bearing.
You had a lot of respect for them.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's where, I want to keep growing. I said, that's where I want to end up.
Yeah, and you had some pretty impactful men in Troop K to look up to.
Oh, absolutely.
Obviously we worked around all those guys for all these years, but there were some influential men that came through Troop K. We talked about Major Casey.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just diehard good man. Just a good influence, good man. Man, I want to take you. I want to take you to April 1st, 2018. I know you've shared this story a lot with new officers, but we want to hope that you'll share that story with us today with our listeners. But so, just another day working the highway, right?
It was April Fool's Day. It was actually Easter Sunday that day too.
Yeah.
I was on night shift that day. I'd spent my whole morning at my wife's grandma's house for Easter. I left there. I got dressed there and left there and went to work. Dade went home, and I went home probably about 7:30, and my wife had made dinner. Made a quick dinner because we just ate Easter. She made like chili dogs or something. It was chili dogs. I haven't eaten a chili dog to this day since.
You don't want that to be remembered as your last meal.
Absolutely.
No.
Yeah.
No. You ever had pain medicine pushed on your stomach with a chili dog on it?
Bro.
Man, I don't even want to go there.
But so I leave the house probably, shortly after 8 o'clock, and there's, I was just making laps. There wasn't a lot of people out. I got on the interstate at the 99, but which a lot of times I leave this part out, I don't tell, is I'd actually stopped at the 99 because there's the bypass ends right there because I wasn't feeling good, and I'd actually thrown up like 2 or 3 times right before this.
Chili dog?
Yeah, absolutely. And I didn't
That's why you
settle
don't eat
around in my
chili dogs
stomach. Because actually in my video, if you look when I looked down at my foot, and there was actually a chili bean on my boot, and I remember thinking like I got to get my boots clean.
I've never heard that aspect of the story before.
So I had
That
to
is
add
great.
in.
You heard it here first, folks.
That's right on the 10-8 podcast. All 20 of our listeners. Chili bean boot.
Yeah. Yeah, so I remember thinking, I was like, I got to get that cleaned off.
Absolutely, you do.
But anyways, so I get on. Well, as I get on the 99, I see this black pickup truck is kind of straddling the center line. They go back over, and I kind of get up. As I get up next to her, well, I know it's a her now, but at the time I didn't. As I get up next to them, they kind of come over and almost hit the front of my car. And so, of course, I back up, and then I'm kind of watching, which they pass, and they get in the other lane. Well, they're all over the road. And I was like, as I remember telling myself, like, well, I was like, I got to stop this car. Because I figured they were intoxicated.
Sure.
It's a lot of people choose to drink a lot on Easter Sunday.
Yep.
For some reason. But they were on the road. Well, she takes the 99 or the 98, excuse me.
Yeah.
And we go down, and as we're traveling, I was like, well, I'm going to wait till I light her up till we get to the gas station because I know it's flat. There's more, more flat
This is that
surface up there.
Rockport right there.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir. Right there at that, it's a Circle K now.
Yeah.
It was Valero at the time. So I light her up, and we pull in there. And what comes into factor later is there's 2 vehicles in the front of the parking lot when we pull in, which turned out was a call to Malvern PD. Probably speak to an officer. I'm not sure what the call. Listen to the videos from their body cams. It was some kind of speak to officer about a domestic issue. We pull in. I go up, make my first approach. I made a driver's side approach, which is not what I do a lot. I know when I was walking up, I could see a lot of stuff piled up on the passenger side, unless I'm not, the tallest person. But I go up, make contact with her. I tell her why I stopped her. I get her, information. I remember she couldn't find her insurance. And I was like, well, just see if you can find it. Get her driver's license. I go back to my car. And she comes back with she don't really have any criminal history in traffic. And she comes back with a bail bond secured warrant out of Texas for dangerous drugs. That's all it says. So I sit there and I confirm it. And, of course, and Texas wanted her, which was
odd.
Yeah, surprising to me, which I had already smelled an odor of intoxicant. Like, I could tell she'd been drinking. And my mind, I was like, I'll get her out. I'll take her up on the warrant, and I can do field sobriety in the Sally Port where it's, a little more controlled.
Of course.
When you made your initial approach and your first contact with her, was there anything about her other than smelling the intoxicants that,
nothing,
set the alarm bells off?
Mm-mm. And that's bothered me a lot because I've beat myself up about this numerous times about what I could have done different. One of the things definitely patched that approach, but we've all had been a lot of incidents, a lot of stuff happen, pursuits, fights, and you can feel that turning point.
Right.
You see them, Clint, you feel that point where stuff's about to break bad. You don't know what's about to happen, but it's about to break bad.
It's fixing to.
And with that, there wasn't that moment until it was that moment.
Was there, looking back, do you believe that there was any part of you thought it's a female and so, it wasn't going to happen? Because I've caught myself being in there, One of the worst times I've ever got slapped around was because I'd let my guard down with a female suspect.
I've been in some bad fights with females.
Yeah, absolutely.
I can say that probably wasn't the first thing on my mind.
Right.
As I tried to get her out, she kind of just quit responding to me. She did say, what'd she say? I messed up my flow, so usually I know. She's like, well, I told her, I said, ma'am, I need you to step out of the vehicle. And she said, is there a problem? That's what she said. And I said, let's get out and talk to me. And she kind of stopped responding. And I can see her hands. She's kind of got big legs. She's got her hands on the bottom of her steering wheel, just sitting just like this. And she's kind of looking at me and looking at her mirror. Looking at me, looking at her mirror. And what I didn't know at the time is that Malvern PD had come on scene back there because there was a vehicle kind of blocking. Right. I couldn't see them. And so I unlocked her door and, ma'am, get out of the vehicle. And at that point, I can say I kind of knew something was going to go on, but it was just a passive, it was a passive noncompliance.
Just locked up.
She was just locked up. And the first thing I thought is she's about to drive off or she's just not going to get out.
Right.
Because she was just wasn't saying nothing. She just looked at me, looking in her mirror. Well, I was like, ma'am, step out of the vehicle. And she does. She moves her legs like she's about to get out. But when she does, I take a little step back. I see her right hand go down. And I got about out to try to address her hand. And she was already come back up that pistol. Yeah. And as soon as it broke the plane of her leg, she fired. Hey, ma'am.
Yes?
Go ahead and shut your truck off. Step out for me.
I'm sorry?
Go ahead and shut your truck off and step out for me.
Oh, there's a problem?
Yeah, there is. I need you to step out.
Prepare yourself to move.
And to me, that felt like the longest. I seen it coming. I could tell you exactly what the gun looked like.
Muzzle flash, whole 9 yards.
And and as soon as I seen him break the plane of her legs, I remember just turning. Because at that point, and that's what I say to a lot of recruits is, at that point I'm beat. Standing there drawing my gun ain't nothing going to do nothing but give me shot more. So, it reverts to your training. Retreat, get to cover and come back and, get off the X, get back to cover and come back and fight. Well, in that attempt, of course she fires, the bullet hits me, at the top of my vest. And I remember, like, I've always wore my vest high. And I remember when I got fitted for my vest, they're like, you don't want to wear it that high. I was like, I've wore a vest for a while. Like, yes, I do. Like, I like it up higher.
Yeah.
And it,
It paid off.
Yeah, paid off.
Saved your life.
Paid off.
Yeah.
And, it hit the top of my vest. It went through 2 layers of my Kevlar, through my collarbone, and it's still like back in my neck. Yeah. And I remember just thinking, I got to get to cover. I couldn't see very well, like the flash. What I didn't realize until I got behind my car was my right arm didn't work. I had no use of my right arm for about 4 months after this. Yeah. So I remember getting my gun out. I got behind my car, and when I turned around, I seen her pulling her door shut, and I got my gun out with my left hand. And about that time, I seen the Malvern officers. And so when I seen them, and they already had their guns up, I dropped my gun and moved back.
Next thing you know it, they'll be in court, and she'll have all the charges dropped. And that's how this stuff works.
God.
Whoa! Get down! Get!
Move! Come here!
Stop! Sheldon! Shots fired in the... Sheldon, where you at? Oh, right here. I'm right here, man. Get down. Get down.
Here. Caitlin, shut up! Here. Just lean back on me. Is it your baby?
Go after the car. Go after the car.
All right, we will call my buddy. Just Kyle, just stay still. I've got you,
Kyle,
sir.
where you hit at?
In my shoulder. I've got you.
Yes, I would have loved to, be engaged in that fight of the person that just shot me and tried to kill me. But the realization there is you have 2 able-bodied police officers. I'm right-handed. My right arm was done. Could I follow with my left hand? I believe absolutely. Malvern PD fires at her. They end up shooting 17 shots, hit the truck 16 times. One actually hit the B post and hit her in the head. Mm-hmm. They were shooting 40s at the time, so it just left a good pop knot. I believe that's one time when the one went through her arm. I'm not exactly sure because there's more gunfire later down the road. She leaves the parking lot. We did have a civilian try to chase her out of the parking lot, and he tries to get her stopped, ends up rolling his Tahoe down there at the 51 and 270 junction. So, of course, when Malvern takes off, and, a huge aspect to me in this job is you become friends with the people you work with and the people you work around. And, this job will make you lose friends, from your past that don't agree, whatever their prerogative is. It's not for me to judge. If they want to go separate ways, it's fine. Sure. So you become, and plus our schedules, but you become friends with, and, Keith Prince, and he's sergeant at Malvern now, was the first one to me. And like I tell him, I was at his house like a week and a half before that with his kids were playing with my kids and, jumping on the trampoline. We had dinner. So not only is it another law enforcement brother or sister hurt, it's also your friends. You bet. And, the first thing, runs his wife, his kids, and I remember, and I caught something in my video. I was at Kalita, and it was about 2 classes ago. I'd never heard it. And I don't know if the audio was just turned up better, but when he first undoes my shirt and stuff and undoes my vest and pulls it back, I tell him not to touch it first. And that's where that's the only thing I kind of heard. And I say, okay. But what I didn't realize is when he put pressure on there, I said, please help me, Prince. And I don't remember saying that. And I never caught that in the video and I've showed that video a lot. And that was because I don't watch my dash cam, but the body cameras don't, it's different to me. I don't know. I didn't ever realize I said that. And when you look back on it, and I just remember what was going through my head was keep my eyes open because if you fall asleep, you die. Yeah. I mean, I could feel the blood. I could see the blood. I didn't probably know how hurt I was at the time or how close that was to not being here. And I just remember thinking about my wife and kids. It was, and then it was, when we got from there, of course, she ends up, so she goes down 51, and Rockport and Malvern, which was Bray and Douglas at the time, or not Malvern, I'm sorry, Rockport and Hot Spring County. But you'll see, like in my one of my body cam videos, when Prince goes down to Douglas and Bray, where that civilian had rolled over, where Seeley was at, because he was the other one that had fired with Prince, was Jack Seeley from Malvern. Prince is talking to Bray and Douglas and tells them that Sheldon's been shot, and he's literally shaking my blood off his hands. And just, I blame the factor what that did to him and the factor it played on him, because he didn't, like you said, he didn't want to leave me. Yeah.
Well, you're not a stranger, right?
Right.
Yeah, you're not just another victim. You're the guy that was at his house last week.
And that's the point I make to a lot of the recruits is you have to go do your job.
Sure.
Yeah, they're your friend, they're your family. The people you depend on every day. But at some point, and somebody was a nurse there and stuff, but you have to go from leaving your friend that's hurt and you don't know what's going to happen to go back to work and let's go catch that bad guy now. Yeah. Right. And so, Bray and Douglas ended up getting after her on Dole Jones Road, which she had told me when I first approached that she was close to where she was going. And come to find out she'd been living down there. She got kicked out of the house, and she'd went to Ohio and bought this gun. And in a roundabout way, she pretty much come back and said that she was, because the guy she was staying with had called at some point, our take over CID, and talked to him, and said she'd called me an hour before this all happened, and said she was coming by the house. And I was like, well, I don't really want you here. She's like, well, I just have something that I want to give you before I go back to Texas. So in a roundabout way, I don't think she ever come out and directly said it, but saying that she was headed to shoot him and I got in her way. Yeah. Is pretty much the factor of it. But, they get down the road and they find her on Dole Jones Road. They take off. She gets TVI'd, is able to, in the ditch. Douglas gets out, when she was in the ditch, and I can't tell if she puts her hands up or what, and she comes out of the ditch, tries to run him over. He fires 2 shots at her. She clips him with the truck, knocks him down, and goes up. Well, Bray was the one, I'm pretty sure, that had TVI'd her. He's already coming back this way, so he goes up after her. When she tries to turn, he just T-bones her. And he told me as they come to a stop, she was already pointing that pistol out the passenger window at him, so he shoots through his windshield 5 times at her, and that's where she falls out of the truck, trying to get from that gunfire, and eventually taken into custody. So it was a wild night. I got 4 officers involved in shooting one night, but got to do things big.
If you're going to do it big, brother.
And the mental. But we go back to laying on that ground in that parking lot and looking down the road. I remember it looked foggy, like it was just dark, and the streets looked empty. It felt like the ambulance took 8 years to get there, which I know they didn't. But when you're laying in a parking lot bleeding, it feels like forever. The paramedics that responded, the Malvern Fire, like everybody did such a great job, just saving my life. The ride to the hospital, that was one of the, he's a lieutenant now, I'd passed the ambulance. He's like, I think that's the fastest I've ever seen an ambulance drive. And I never really got nervous, I don't feel, until they pushed me in the hospital. And when, they kind of push you by the room and then back you in. Well, when they pushed me by the room, I couldn't look right at all, but my head was to my left. When they pushed you by the room, all I seen was it looked like 20 people in gowns and face masks and gloves, standing in a U. And I was like, that's when it hit me, like, oh, this ain't good.
Yeah, man.
And I don't like needles, so I was arguing with the doctor about more than I was like, I already have 3 IVs in, like, can we not use one of those? And he kind of laughed at me. And then my O2 stats were like 53% when I come in there. And so he's like, we got to put a chest tube in. And he's like, you can't breathe. I said, well, Doc, I'm talking to you so I can breathe. Those are little things that I remember, from there. And then just the outpour of the troopers and local, deputies and city cops that arrived. you know, I remember them all standing in the hallway, and everybody came in and talked to me. And, you know, like, I remember the nursing staff asking them, like, y'all need to clear the hallway, and they're like, we're not going anywhere. Like, I remember, like, some of the stuff I've been told later. But it was just it was a surreal thing. And then, you know, as it progressed in the ER, they ended up not putting a chest tube in. Thank goodness. Got was put in. They look terrible. Packing a wound, when they say it hurts, it definitely is. It is bad. From that point, you know, like we spoke earlier, like, I don't remember much after that. Remember being awake in surgery for a minute, and then waking up in ICU, and then I woke up in another room later on. But
can I ask you a question? Back up just a minute. So we talk a lot about, you know, what you focus on to get you through that moment of chaos. And I think you kind of touched on it just a little bit, but from the point you were shot to the point you went into surgery, was there something that you focused on that kept you hanging on, especially before the ambulance got there? I mean, was it your wife and kids?
It was my wife and kids.
Yeah.
And I still remember, like, when my wife first come into the trauma room, like, I just felt this calm over me. And I told her, I was like, oh, good, you're here. Everything's going to be okay now.
Yeah.
And she was like, you know, I know she was like, sure. Like,
yeah, you got a lot of blood on you.
Yeah.
You got tubes coming out of you.
And, you know, but that's how it felt. Like, the calm that she brought, and her being there, like, I knew, I don't know, I just felt right then, like, this calm came over me. I felt different.
Yeah.
Like, I felt like, oh, it's going to be okay. And, like, whatever happens now is okay. Like, I'm able to talk to her for a minute. You know, my kids will know. And, you know, that's one of the hard things. I look back and how young my kids were. And, you know, I don't know if my daughter even remembered me.
Yeah.
You know, and that was one thing. And even when I tell my story, and I start with this, there's a picture that was made on Facebook that I use as my cover page for my slideshow. And there's a picture of my son hugging me, and it chokes me up every time. But
It's all right, brother.
you know, he stood at my door for almost 20 minutes before he would come to me.
Yeah.
And that, you know, it was, and to go back a little bit behind that is, he had heard my wife talking. My wife found out on Facebook that FYI Arkansas had posted, you know, officer involved shooting in Malvern, or Arkansas State Police Trooper involved, officer involved shooting in Malvern. Well, somebody sends her a screenshot of that. Like, hey, is Kyle working? Well, our wives know. Like, at the time, I was the only trooper out.
Man.
Well, then a few minutes later, there's another one sent to her. It says trooper's down, suspect's been shot. Well, she don't know at that time that I've been shot. She don't know. She didn't know if I got run over. Like, she knows that I was down.
Yeah.
You know, that I was hurt in some way. So she's trying to call my sergeant, which was Shannon Shepard at the time.
Yes, sir.
You know, great sergeant.
Yes, sir.
One of the best
Great man.
Yeah. And, you know, that, and she finally gets a hold of him, which I'm sure his phone was going crazy too. And I remember hearing the radio traffic in my ear, and because my dispatch doesn't know yet, because I had hit my emergency button because I couldn't get out on my radio. Yeah. And because I tried to say shots fired, it was just, like, we know that.
Yeah, the bonks.
Yeah.
And with everybody talking, well, I can hear them, you know, K32, 1050, I can hear them still saying that. Well, people are telling me they know. I'm like, no, they don't.
Yeah.
And, you know, I had somebody go get on my car radio.
Yes,
I
sir.
told them, I said, hey, somebody go grab that white mic and tell them that I've been shot. The suspect vehicle is a black Dodge, silver toolbox. The tag on it was KJM 9113. And, you know, and when that was out, I could hear the whole radio traffic change.
Yeah.
And because he got on there, trooper's been shot, suspect vehicle, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, I hear Shannon on the radio. I remember his voice vividly. You know, I can hear him in my ear. He was like, K forward, you know, post 1 and post 3. He said 1019 to Malvern. I want a trooper there now. And, you know, post 2, slide over to cover. I remember hearing, like, it stuck in my head forever. And you could hear from the initial, when he first said, hey, K32 was attempting to arrest the subject and we got negative contact, to that guy get on the radio and you could hear it in their voices. You could hear everybody talking on the radios. Everything was changed, and that what they felt and their response and how quick everybody got, did their best to get there. And it was just, and all I was doing was sitting there and I was listening to that radio traffic. And eventually somebody took my belt off me and my radio and I couldn't hear it no more. But it was, that stuff stuck in my head for, forever. How quick some of them got there still kind of amazed me. Like, good driving.
You bet.
But I mean, some in that situation, I'm gonna do the same thing. It don't matter if that car's smoking when I get there. You want to get there and help your brother. So it was like I remember when I was in the ambulance. Osagara was the first one to me, and
old George.
He opened the ambulance door because at this point nobody knows how my condition.
Yeah.
So when he gets there, he's like, Kyle, you okay? And I was like, I'm okay. I don't know if I'm all right. And and that's
I can see George asking that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And he's great.
Yes, he is.
And so that's when he gets on the radio and advises them that that I was alert and responsive. But there's a whole there's 10, 12 minutes there where nobody knows.
Yeah, man.
And the radios are going crazy. There's stuff going on everywhere. So, and I always think, like, I've talked to a lot of guys, and all of them were just, like, man, I felt sick. I was so far away. Like, I was, I just wanted to be there.
Sure.
So it was, it's a surreal thing, and it's something you don't, it always stays in the back of your mind, but it was learning to, I was off for 11 months, recovering my arm. I had PT 4 days a week. My arm would come back good. I have some bad range of motion on the one side, but besides that, it was, and the mental battle was probably the toughest, and my wife was, my rock and everything. Like, she is just amazing. Like, she put up with so much, like, just through my battles, my struggles, coming to terms with the fact somebody tried to kill you over nothing.
You bet.
And it was just, and then like my kids, my son was the hardest. I know when I told him I was going back to work, he slammed his door in my face, told me I didn't love him, and didn't talk to me for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Like, didn't say a word to me. And that's come tenfold. He's older now. It's, it's been some time, and it evolved, slowly. It took him a while. Like, he's always wanted to hunt, and it took him a while to even want to shoot a gun again. Like, so we've come through. It affected a lot more than just me, and the battles and the struggles my wife endured that I maybe took for granted that I didn't see or didn't realize, that I'm so appreciative of now. And it was, and then people like Zach Owens, Pete Penny.
Yeah, man.
I leaned on those guys hard.
Sure.
Like, there's days, I know me and you talked a lot, and you need that. And, having somebody that can relate, because if you haven't been through it, you don't understand the whole spectrum of it. Like, there's ideas like, oh, you just should get over it. It's not something you just
get over.
Get over, because every time I move my arm, I feel that pain.
Yes, sir.
But I look at it now, and it made me appreciate life a lot more.
Yes, sir.
I try not to take any moment for granted. That pain to me is, now I look at it as a blessing. It lets me know I'm alive. God took care of me that night.
Amen.
And that's the only, I hate when people say, oh, you were lucky, you're lucky. I wasn't lucky.
Mm-hmm.
Luck had nothing to do with it.
You bet.
I said I was blessed.
Yes, sir.
That bullet went any other place, and where it went, I wouldn't be here talking to you.
Yeah.
And that brings up, and I mean, you were there when that happened, Brent Scrimshire.
Yes, sir.
Good friend of mine. We went to high school together, hung out, went to Leda together. Great guy. And, he got shot an inch from where I did, inside. So it brings in the whole spectrum of how quickly it could end in, and how I even, felt guilty about like when Brent's happened, like I kind of had conviction. Like,
Yes, sir.
how come I made it and he didn't?
Yeah, brother.
You know, what makes me different?
Yeah.
And
You know,
it's all God's plan though.
When
Amen, it
Brent's
is.
happened, you know, I was actually the chief in South Carolina out in Bluffton, Hilton Head, Bluffton at the time, and I had Brandon Jones come from Hot Springs to do some canine training with our dogs out there. And Brandon and I are at dinner when both our phones start going off, and you talk about that regret of not being able to be there. Boy, that just tore me up. You know, those were, even though I was a chief in South Carolina, HSPD was still my people. You know, and boy, that was a hard feeling. So all those guys that are coming to you, you know, and they tell you they regret not being there, I completely understand that.
You know, Kyle, you and I have talked before. There's a small percentage of law enforcement officers that ever have to use their weapon in the line of duty, and there is a smaller group of individuals, a club almost, that have gone through certain things, been shot in line of duty, and lived. Brother, I'm glad you're here.
Yeah.
I'm glad you're here to share your story, man, not only from growing up, but, man, that resiliency that, hey, you know, these are the struggles. You know, you talk about the struggles, how your spouse was your rock, man, and your kids, and the struggles in regards to it, and coming through that, you know, and, you know, I've got to ask, was it tougher in the quiet moments?
Absolutely. I mean, that's what, you know, and I go back to, you know, my wife being there and putting up with more than she probably should have.
Sure.
You know, the moments that nobody's seen when I beat myself up alone,
Yes, sir.
feeling like I should have done better.
Yeah, man.
I've Monday night quarterbacked myself, probably to this day.
Yes, sir.
Yep. Don't know that you'll ever stop doing that.
No, but it also plays in the factor of how I approach my job now,
I get that.
and you know the way I conduct traffic stops now, the way that I try to teach others when I have the opportunity. You know, officer safety is huge to me. It was in the past, but more so now. And just finding, you know, it took a little bit to find my comfort again, and not complacency by any means,
Sure.
but a comfort in getting my confidence back. You know, it took some time to find my comfort in this is how I'm going to conduct business.
Yeah.
And I think in anything, whether you were involved in a shooting or you were shot and, you know, returning to work, you find you have to, you know, straighten your mind back out. You know, like if I pull over a black Dodge pickup now and I see those blue lights flashing on the tailgate, you know, it's in the back of my mind.
Of course.
Yeah.
You know, I still do, but it's finding that confidence you build, you know, relying on your training, relying on your, you know, abilities that you've gained over the years. And at some point, I know y'all are older than me, but that,
Thanks. Appreciate that. Thank you.
but I have, you know, like become one of the older guys.
Yeah, man.
And I don't know when that happened.
It just does.
It just
happens.
happens.
Yeah.
I was talking to one of the Malvern guys the other day, and he's like, when did you start at Malvern PD? I was like, 2012. He's like, oh, I was 11. I was like, you were 11?
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
and
dude.
so at some point, and you know, and I feel like we owe it to the guys underneath us to share our experience.
Absolutely.
And this is a job, you know, that you continue to learn every day. And if you don't, I don't feel like you're doing the right thing. You know, you have to evolve in this job. You have to continue to learn and grow every day.
Yeah.
And, you know, find something to progress and learn. And are we all perfect at it? Absolutely not. But we try our best, you know, and, you know, it's just keeping up with the changes and how much, and I'm sure y'all have seen a enormous change in,
Yeah, I mean,
you
when
know,
we started back
environments
with
and
covered wagons and horses and
Yeah,
muskets, you know,
absolutely.
because of our age.
yeah.
Kyle, let me ask you this question. When you was going through your recovery, did you go through any mental counseling?
I did.
And do you still do it now?
I don't do it now, but I did for about that year.
Okay.
I seen a counselor in Little Rock, and we did that that EP,
EAP.
EAP.
yeah,
EAP.
like the
Employment assistance program.
no, not that one.
Not that one.
It's that it offers that in there. It's that training, like for PTSD. I forget what it's called.
It's all right, brother.
That's
But
all right.
anyways, so they had a counselor that specialized in that, and that's who I ended
Oh,
up
a
seeing.
specific trauma counselor.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and kind of went through there, and it helped a lot. And I think some of my struggle came from is I thought I had a lot of grasp on my childhood, and
Working through those problems.
Some of that
and-
stuff came up.
and some of that stuff started like I was like, if I can't get my mind around this, some of the other stuff started playing in factors and made it even tougher along the way. But I had a lot of support from the people around me. I mean, like I said, me and you have spent hours on the phone together.
Yes, sir.
Pete, Zach, he was my captain at the time, but Major Casey, Scott, Joe,
Yes, sir.
Captain Joe. We had, I had a lot of support. He was my lieutenant at the time.
Yes, sir.
I had a lot of support around me, being involved. We go back, even guys like, my David Cooper was my lieutenant before.
Yeah.
Like me and him had talked a lot, which he's from the Glen Rose area too, so I've seen him quite a bit. And it's just leaning on the people around you. I mean, there was times where I didn't, where I felt alone, where I felt, there was definitely some struggles that occurred, some workers' comp issues that I endured, but, Major Casey, fought every battle with me along the way, and, I feel like I owe a lot to him over the stuff that he helped me with during that process.
Sure.
Like, probably that's the reason I'm still here.
Yeah.
And there was definitely a lot of other people involved. I'm not going to name everybody, but
Had your tribe though, didn't you?
yeah, absolutely. I had
know.
people that fought tooth and nail with me through everything, from FMLA getting denied to all the other struggles that were encountered during that time that I did not expect.
Yeah.
And I know now, like, a lot of that has been fixed.
Sure.
Our new administration's great. They've made a lot of amazing changes, and I still appreciate being here and coming to work every day. Like, I love my job. Obviously, there's nothing else that I want to do.
Well, it's your calling.
Absolutely.
I mean, and I think that is just a testament to who you are, because there was a period where you had the opportunity to step away, and where'd you end up? Right back here.
Right.
I mean, this is God's calling for you. This is what God intends for you to do. I mean, your testimony is, the fact that you honor God in that, and that you use it and you see it as a blessing.
Absolutely.
Right? Not luck.
That's awesome.
Man, that's a heck of a testimony for our officers out there that are listening, and our deputies, and anyone that just pays attention.
And I feel it's huge, and not everybody, and to me it doesn't really matter if people agree with me and not about that, is
That's
it's God first above everything. And if you find a church home, be a part of that, because and the reality of it, that's the answer to everything. And he has a path for you, and we're supposed to share it, we're supposed to pass it on, we're supposed to be a testimony to other people. And to me, I feel like mine is a testimony in itself, that I survived a gunshot wound to the chest
You're a
that
miracle.
a lot of people don't.
You're definitely a miracle.
So it's it's a blessing. And then just the blessings in my life of my wife, my kids, God's put everybody in along the way. There's been definitely some rough roads, but it's all led to something that's amazing. And you still have your struggles, you still have your adversity and stuff, but
Well, I promise this to you. So you talk about God blessing you. There is no doubt in my mind, knowing your passion, compassion for those that you're out there serving, you continually bless people every day.
Amen.
absolutely.
And
100%, man.
this is a great episode to be able to share that. Thank you for humbling us by telling your story today and sharing that with us. And see, it wasn't as bad as you thought it was, right?
No.
So he was as nervous as a polecat earlier. So
He was.
But Kyle, just thank you for coming on and sharing this with us. And we'll wrap up with that. And just we want to thank everybody that makes this opportunity available. Obviously, our governor for putting us in these positions of leadership and authority, and Secretary Hager for his leadership with the Department of Public Safety and the Arkansas State Police, and Attorney Tim Griffin for the opportunity to build this studio out. He funded this entire project. And we got a great team behind the cameras over here, Jonathan, Stephanie, and Barbara, and Laura. We couldn't do it without them. Nope. So we're going to sign off for today. And Kyle, again, we just appreciate you sharing your story, man.
Thank you for having me.
God bless you, buddy.
Love you, Bubba.
Love y'all too.